Okay, 103b at 7 lines from the bottom. Amar Bibi Amar Yeshua ben Levi Ma'aseh b'Preda Achaz. There's a mule from the house of Rebbe Shemesa. So we just spoke about different measurements. So we're going to talk about little measurements for a little bit. So a mule died. It wasn't shechted. It's an avela. It's a carcass. The question is, what's the status of its blood? Does it contaminate or not? That's the question. So the mule died in the house of Rebbe, and the Chachamim said, "V'shiru Chachamim as dama b'revius." The fourth of a lug, that measurement of blood will contaminate. So they hold that a nevela, the blood of a nevela, of a carcass, contaminates with the measurement of a revius lug, a fourth of a lug. Matzav Rav Yitzchak Bar Bisna, he brings a question that what? Hey Rabbi Yeshua, that hey Rabbi Yeshua, he testified, Rabbi Yeshua testified, Rabbi Yeshua ben Meseira and Rabbi Yeshua ben Meseira, al dam nevela shehu dar. They don't find that blood of a nevela contaminates. The Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Meseira, and Rabbi Yeshua ben Meseira said, Ma'asev hayu nochrin arudios le'arayos be'istra shomelech. They would go and they would kill donkeys.
Asses, yeah.
Was it?
An ass, a wild ass.
A donkey. So, no name calling, please. So it was a donkey, and to feed to the lions in the Istra Shalmelech, in the palace of the king, in the not the palace, in the stadium of the king. So they would go and they would kill a lot of them. So much, so interesting. The Hayu Oli Regalim, the people that came 3 times a year to be inspired to the base of Migdash, to do the mitzvah, what would happen to them? They would get there and they would be up to their knees in blood from these donkeys. Shokin ad rachavosehen bedam. There was so much blood there for these donkeys that they would slaughter for the king to feed to the lions, that they're up to their knees in blood. Okay, and so now 1 second. Now they're all contaminated. So they're not walking to the base of Migdash. Sorry, buddy. It's a busy mikvah, yeah? So they charge it. It's a good fundraiser. So velo amru lahem davar. And the rabbi said nothing. So meaning they held that the blood of these animals does not contaminate. So that was the question that was posed to Rav Bibi. So Rav Bibi's response was ishtik. He was silent. No response. So Amrli Rav Zreika, why didn't he answer? My time alokam mahader. Respond. Say something. My time alokam mahader mar. Why did Master not respond? Amrli, heichi hadulai. What should I say? I don't know. He stumped me. So the Amr of Chanan, the Amr Rabbi Chanan. So he said, "What should I say?" And now he quotes the statement of Rabbi Chanan, who's interpreting the curses at the end of the Torah. So one of those curses is that it says my life hangs in the balance depending on God. What's the curse? A person so scared that he buys grain this year for next year. You go to Trader Joe's, I'm looking for some bread for 2027, just to make sure. So we had this in the very, very beginning of Corona. So there was a pandemonium struck. There'll be no more food in the supermarkets. So everyone rushed Saturday night. Toilet paper, pasta flying off the shelves. And there was an egg drought. And then after a few weeks, there was plenty of food. So eggs were a little hard to get. But upacharita liyomam laila v'yomam, and you're going to be scared night and day. What's that referring to? Shabbos. That curse is someone has to buy food Erev Shabbos, and he's not going to. How am I going to get food till next week? You come on with 4 challahs this week from Safeway, 2 for now, 2 for next week. So you're scared. What's going to be? So va'al tam mechayecha, and don't trust in your own life. That curse is referring to zeh hasomech al palter. You're always relying on the baker for food. No food at home. You always have to go out and get it. So vahu gavra, next page, al palter samech. He relies on the baker. So vahu gavra, he's referring to himself now. Vahu gavra, meaning that guy, but it's referring to himself. He's saying, I'm relying on the baker, meaning it sounds like he's in a state of nervousness right now. You asked me why I didn't respond to him, the question that he asked, the answers. I'm telling you, I'm not in the right frame of mind to answer questions. So interesting to know why.
I'm just thinking about all the blood in Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
All what? All the blood.
All the blood.
You know, they're walking knee deep in the blood. You go to the temple, it's knee deep.
Oh no, here comes Donna, right? You're knee deep in the blood. So who washed your pants before you walked to Beis Hamikdash? She has this question: how do you get the blood out of the clothing? So she's a hard time that they did a better job washing than she can. No, I'm kidding. So my Havilah. So what happened at the end? What was the conclusion? Hamar of Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Moraina, the Beinesiya Havo. So Rabbi Yosef said that Rabbi Yehuda, Moraina, the Beinesiya, the teacher of the house of the Nasi. There's a Rashi says that there's someone in the Nasi's house, in the leader's house, who would answer questions. You have nowadays many places have called a Beis Hora'ah, a house of really of teaching, but it means it's there's a rabbi there all day long answering questions. You know, the Mir always had across the street a Beis Hora'ah from certain hours, different days. You know, so someone here had a question yesterday that they thought of in returning a lost object. Like, interesting question. So there's a special business Halacha Institute. They're available to answer your business questions. You know, you have these things. So he was there. This Morina, the Beis Nesiya. He was the guy in the leader's house and then the head of the Jewish people's house would be there answering questions. So I guess he went over to him. He asked them, or he taught. And he taught as follows: the Tanan Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Shisha Dvarim Mekula Beishama. Usually Beishama is strict. However, there are 6 things, the Mishnah and Adios, it says there are 6 things that are from the leniencies of Beis Shammai, umechumrei Beis Hillel, and the stringencies of Beis Hillel. What are these? So one of them is dam nevelos, the blood of a nevela. Beis Shammai mitarin. Beis Shammai says it's pure. But Beis Hillel mitamin, and Beis Hillel says that it is impure. Okay, so you see it here. Now, Amar Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Af kishetimu Beis Hillel lo yitimu ela b'revius. Even when they contaminated, they said the blood of the nevela is can contaminate. They only contaminated it with a revius, that amount. Why? Since if you congeal the blood, it could be it can get to a kazayas. A revius in liquid is a kazayas in solid. So when it's congealed, so therefore that's going to contaminate. What's interesting to me is that usually people don't have questions about things that are explicit Mishnayos. The Mishnayos they all knew by heart. It's interesting here that there's 2 opinions in a debate, and what did you hold by the blood of a nevela, and it comes out it's an explicit Mishnah in Adios. It's Machlos Beis Hillel Beis Shammai. I don't know. You have to know what to do with that. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. So either way, Amos Navdin look. Okay. So now we're talking about the way you verbalized your offering. So until now we had your flour and in one vessel, and before that we had Harei Alai upon me, Harei Zu in the shallow pan, the deep frying pan. We had wheat and barley, fine flour, not fine flour. So here you want to donate to the temple wine, libations, wine. So the question is, certain measurements we have already, they're brought with certain sacrifices, but certain measurements are brought with 0 sacrifices. So, for example, ein misnaden lug shnayim. You say I want to bring 2 lug of wine. Well, no such thing. There's no sacrifice that you bring 2 with. So vichamisha, 2 and 5 are not brought. We don't find any offering that you bring 2 or 5 with. However, 3, 4, 6, and then onwards. So 3 you bring with a keves, with a sheep. The arba al 4 with a ram, and then 6 you bring with a bull. And then after 6, you can now combine them, right? So you could do if you have 7, you can combine 3 and 4. If you do 8, you could do 4 and 4. If you do 9, you could do 2 ayalim and a keves. You could do and you can do that lo'olam forever. But 2 and 5 are the odd man out. So now ask the Gemara ibailuhu. So we're going to bring our Mishnah as an answer to this question in a little bit. But right now we're asking ibailuhu. Yesh kavel and asachim, o ain kavel and asachim. So when you offer up libations, do you have to offer up? You bring it all together in one, meaning when you say I want to bring this measurement of wine, it's going to come with one sacrifice, and if so, then it better match it. Or ain kavel and asachim. You want to bring measurements of wine, however they're divided up, they're divided up. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be assigned to a sacrifice. So what's the case? Hechidami, for example, to go into Isi Chamisha. Now, obviously, our Mishnah said you can't bring 5, so we're going to get back to that in a second. Let's say you say, I want to bring 5 measurements of wine. So, if you want to bring 5 and you hold, there's no fixed, you don't have to affix the wine to a certain sacrifice. You could divide it up any way you want. So then, very simple, you bring 4 for the ram, you have 1 left over, it'll be brought as a voluntary offering, voluntary wine offering. Which means what? So not that you bring it as a wine offering, but Rashi says you're going to sell it. You'll sell that extra lug of wine, extra measurement of wine. You'll take the money and you'll put it towards the extra, towards the extras. Or Rashi says you can take this 1 lug and combine it with 2 others to get you 3, for example. So you'll use it. It'll either be sold, then you'll take the money and you put it for extra sacrifices, or you yourself will add it on to someone, to another sacrifice that's in need of 1 more lug. Okay. The Yamris Yesh Kavel and Asachim. And if you said that there is a set amount, you have to fix it. So then Ad Dememalilahu Lo Karvi. Well, if you said 5, then you better find something that could fill up. If you have to wait till you have an amount. So for example, if you have 5, you have to wait till you get 6, because 5 you can't bring. There's no sacrifice has 5. So you have to wait till you bring 1 more to get 6 measurements of wine, and then you can bring it with the bull. But until that point, you can't bring a 4 and 1. Does not work.
2 and 3.
There's no 2. There's no 2. Yeah. I'm sure there was someone who was the counter, the actuary in the base of Mikdash. In case the guy forgot how much 5 goes into the hotel, So not to worry. So I'll plug it into the calculator. So either way, what's the answer? So So what's the answer? So Amar Abaye, we're going to try to bring a proof from a Mishnah later on. So they had 6 I call it horns, but 6 tzedakah boxes, so to speak, 6 chests where you had extras from different sacrifices. And out of those 6 that are listed, not one of them is extra wine libations. The Gemara is going to ask if you can do it 4 and 1, 4 for your offering and 1 is extra. You should have had a 7th tzedakah box that said on it extra wine libations, and the money will go there. But it only had 6 for other sacrifices, not for this one. So Tashma Shisha L'Nedava, you had 6 of the 13 chests or tzedakah boxes. They're called shofrus. 6 of them were for extra money. And we said, Keneged me, what do these 6 correspond to? So Keneged Mosar Chatas. So let's say Rashi says, just in case you separate $100 for your chatas, but now it only cost you 80. You went on Dan's deals. He had an extra, $80 offering. By the way, Rabbi Dovid showed me somebody made a website. I should share it. CorbanCalculator.com. Corban Calculator. Nowadays, how much would it cost you? 5 rams, 3 sheep, 2 bulls. It plugs in with the amount of dollars. The amount it's going to cost you in the temple. It's fascinating. I'll post it. It's very interesting. It's like on Sukkot, it's like very expensive. How many Avera, daily sacrifices. So it comes out. It's a very interesting with nowadays average pricing of animals. So CorbinCalculator.com. Either way, so let's say you separate $100 for your chatas offering, but you found online a good deal. Yeah, used your points, and all it cost you $80. So extra $20 went to this chest, this tzedakah box. Extra $20 over there. Ooh, Moser Asham was another one for the Asham offerings, the guilt offerings. Okay. Ooh, Mosar Asham Nazir. And then you had the Asham Nazir. It had its own one. Okay. And then Mosar Asham Mitzora. And the Asham, the guilt offering of the Mitzora, had its own one. Ooh, Moser Keenan, the Keenan for the birds, your bird offerings, had its own. Ooh, Moser Minchas Chota. And a special one for the sin offering, flour sin offering. Also extra money went there. Now, if you're able to, you don't have to affix your wine libation to a certain offering, and you could divvy it up in any which way you want. So then, if you have, let's say, 5, it should go 4 and 1. 4 for the offering, 1 should go to the extra tzedakah box, extra wine libations. Says the Gemara, Isa, Litzkin Shofar Achrina Kegin Mosar Nesachim. Affix another one for the Mosar Nesachim. So it says the Gemara. So it sounds like from the fact that they didn't have a 7th chest for extra wine libations, that's because when you're offering wine libations, it has to be affixed to a certain sacrifice, and you're not going to have you won't have any extra. You won't have extra. Yeah. Now it's interesting because you could ask a different question. You could ask that anytime you want to set aside wine for an offering, even if it is affixed to that offering, but still, what if it goes down in price? What do you do with the extra? So that's interesting. But the Gemara is assuming that if really you could divide up the maybe it wasn't enough extra. I mean, maybe the discrepancy in a fourth of a revius. How much is it? A penny? I mean, come out this much wine, and that would happen. It went down in price. But this much wine? That's not a sheep, a ram, like we'll see on Corbin Calculator, is expensive. So, that can really go down in price. $20, $30, $100. That's probably the simple answer. Either way, though, there's no chest that says extra wine libations, because it sounds like you can't divide it up. If you offer 5, you have to wait till you get to 6. You can't do 4 and 1. So says the Gemara, no, it's not necessarily a proof. Why? Because Hanach lenidvas tzibur azli. So these ones were for the communal offerings, and so hani shchichi after the mitzdarfi demar udemar after the mitzdarfi. These. One second. Sorry. Hanach lendavos tzibur azli. So hani shchichi. These are very common. But our case of wine, after the mitzdarfi, demar udemar. By us, even if you have to affix it to a certain sacrifice, so if you offer 5, you can just wait till you get 6, and it'll go. It's very rare that you'll have extra wine. Why have extra wine? So if you have any extra, you'll put it on to another offering that needs more wine. Mm-hmm. So an extra ounce of wine, you put it for the next offering. So it's not a common you're going to have a whole amount of wine they have nothing to do with. So since the wine is after the mitzdarfi, demar bahadi adadi, they carve it, you can always add it on. If you have extra to that or to that, so that's why they didn't make an extra chest for the extra wine. But the question is not resolved. We still have a question. Do you have to affix the libation to a certain sacrifice, or you could divvy it up any way you want? So Amar Rava, in that section of the Torah that deals with libations, there's an extra verse, Tashma Ezrach, so it means a resident, someone. Yeah. So Melamed Shemisnavdin Nesachim teaches you that he can offer Nesachim, the Kama, and how many? Shloshes Lugin, 3 lug. Uminayin Shem wrote to the host of Yosef. How do you know if he wants to add? He can add Talmud Lomar Yihiyah. It says Yihiyah. It has to be. I guess it's extra, and it says that you could add more. Okay, well maybe then you could. Yeah, the Rashi says it says Yihiyah. It's a Chatzeyin Yelepar. Yeah, Yihya tells you you can add more. Yachol yivchos, you can think maybe you could decrease. You could do less than that amount. Talmud lomer kacha. No, it has to be like this. So you can't decrease, but you can add more. Now, so you see in the Torah, according to the Brisa, that there's an exposition that you could add to your libation. The question is, my Yosef, how much could you add? So our case talking about 3 measurements. So how much could you add? So ilema arba v'shisha. So if you could add 4 and 6, so then ma'ishna shlosha de chazul keves and arba v'shisha nami chazul ayil apart. When it said you have 3 lug and you could add to it, so what does it mean you could add to it? If it means you could add, like you could do 4 or 6, well, that doesn't make sense. Why? Because 3 lug is the amount you bring for a sheep. 4 and 6 is the amount you'll bring for a ram and for a bull. So obviously, when it said 3, it meant 3 for the sheep. If it means you're allowed to bring 4 lug, we know that already. You can bring 4 for the ram and 6 for the bull. So the fact that you could add, that you're allowed to bring more wine libations, we know that already. If it's 4 or 6, elalav chamisha. The novelty is that you could bring 5. 5 has no designated animal offering with it. So that's a novelty. You can go from 3 to 5, and now you have 5. What do you do with 5? You must be that 5. You divide it up. B'shmamina ein kevel in a sachin. Shmamina, and then that'll teach you that there's no set amount. Not no set amount. Sorry, there's no affixation by the wine libations. You can offer an offering, and whatever the number is, you can divide it up as you wish. So if you offer 5, for example, you can do 4 and 1. Amar of Ashi. Okay, now we bring to our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says 2 and 5 is not an option. Amar of Ashi v'hanan lo tanan haki. Did we not teach like this? Ein misnavin luk shnayim v'chamisha. You can't bring 2 and 5. So you just told me 5. So now our Mishnah said you can't bring 2 and 5. So ketani chamisha to me the shnayim. It sounds like the case of 5 is similar to the case of 2. Ma shnayim dilo chazu klal. 2 is not fit for anything. So too, chamisha nami dilo chazu klal midi. Dilo chazu klal. 5 also is fit for nothing. So that should show you that you can't do 4 and 1. You have to only do what's fit for an animal. 5 is not fit for any animal. Says the Gemara, midi area. Are they really the same? 2 and 5? Hakad Isa. 2 is actually fit for nothing. So that's never going to work. So 5, ideally, we don't do because you have nothing to put it to. However, if you did 5, you could do 4 and 1. So it sounds like our Mishnah is telling you that even though 5, there's an option of 4 and 1, lechatchila, you shouldn't do it. Ideally, you shouldn't do it. I guess the reasoning is because you shouldn't leave off 1 and then figure out what to do with it. Sounds like ideally you should affix it to a certain sacrifice.
But if you can do 4 and 1 with 5,
then why not do it ideally?
you want to do 1 and 1 with 2.
Well, as a voluntary one for something. Meaning, I know that you need 2 extra reviuses of wine. I'm just going to offer 2 for your.
No, but add you can split 4 and 1.
One second.
No, because 1 you hold over for someone else.
The answer is a guy says, I'm offering 2 measurements of wine. There's no offering that has that. So we disregard that. We don't assume. What he means is he wants to give 2, he wants to add 1 and 1 to different sacrifices. When you say 5, okay, 5, 4 of it goes to a sacrifice. You could definitely assume he wants to affix that to a sacrifice. Now, what do you do with the 1 extra? Okay, we'll figure it out. But it sounds like for the nether to work, it has to affix itself to a certain sacrifice. B'di'evid, after the fact, if you have an extra 1, you could put it for something else. But the chatchila, when you're making a nether, you should ideally affix it to a sacrifice. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Amar Abai, imtim talomer ain't kavlan asachim. If you're going to tell me there's no affixation, it doesn't have to be affixed to a sacrifice, ain't kavlan asachim, so ha ain't kavlan asachim. So, and therefore, I mean, if there's no fixed amount, so there's no fixed amount, and you could do as much as you want, from 2 and up. No, from 3 and up, I guess. Whatever, you can do 100, whatever it is. You can do it as much as you want. However, im tim tzalomar yesh kavlan asachim. So it sounds like Abai still had a question about this even after the Brisa seemed to conclude it. Abai wasn't sure. Im tim tzalomer, if you're going to tell me yesh kavlan asachim, that there is a fixation to the libations, so then ad asara pshitali echad asar mibai 10 is obvious to me, because if you offer up 10, so then you have 3 for the sheep, and then you have 4 for the ram. Sorry, for 10, when you have 10, you could do 6 for the bull and 4 for the ram. You get 10. But 11 is a question. Next page, Mibayli. How do you divide up 11? Echad asar mibayli. So what's the question? So when you guy says 11, what did he mean? Lishnei parim kavachaven. When a guy says 11, did he mean really 12, 2 bulls? The ad dimemalalahu lo karvi, and until he gets 12, obviously he can't bring the libations. Or maybe what he meant was aldima lishnei ayolim. It was for 2 rams, which is 8. The keves, which is 3, that's 11. Dilma lishnei ayolim the keves echad kamachaven. Trei mechad mina v'chad mechad mina amrinan. Hello. So, which one is it? So, do you say that that's what he intended? So 2 from one and 1 from the other. You have two rams and 1 sheep. Olo, or not. How do you view it? Does the guy intend to bring one kind? He wants 2 bulls until he gets his 12th one. He's right now he has 11. He said, 11, I'm setting aside. You have to wait till he gets the 12th one because he really meant 2 bulls, because that's what people mean when they say 11. They mean from 1 species. Or no, 11, he would never, it's not normal to vow something and then have to fill it up 1 more. When he meant 11, what he really meant was 2 different species, 2 rams and 1 sheep. Keku, unclear. Misnavdin yayin. You can offer up wine on its own because wine is brought animal with wine. But oil is never brought as just oil. It's brought with flour. So misnavdin yayin v'ein misnavdin shemen. Rabbi Akiva, just oil is not going to work. That's not a good vow because we don't bring oil on its own. Rabbi Tarfon Omer misnavdin shemen. No, if you offered up oil, you could bring oil. I'm Rabbi Tarfon mamatzinu. I'll learn from yayin. Mamatzinu be yayin shehu bachobo banadava. Just like wine comes obligatory and voluntarily, av shemen, so to oil shehu bachobo banadava. It comes as an obligatory offering, so it should be able to come as a voluntary offering as well, just to bring oil up. So Amar Rabbi Akiva, that's not a good comparison. Low. Wine gets brought on its own, meaning wine and an animal, but the wine itself, you pour it on the altar, it's just wine. Oil, when you bring it with the obligatory offering, is never brought on its own. It's always brought with flour. So your comparison to wine is not a good comparison. So a machlokis, if you just offer up voluntarily, make a neder, make a vow to bring oil, are you obligated, yes or no? Now, that's 1. 2, ein shnayim misnavdim isar nechad. 2 people cannot together offer up 1/10 of flour. Doesn't work. We'll see why. Aval misnavdim ola, but we can together offer up an ola, or a shlamim, or an oaf, a burnt offering, a peace offering, a bird, afilu preda achas, even one fledgling, yeah. Not a mule. Afilu, yeah, even 1 fledgling. So there's a split when it comes to 1/10, meaning that minimal amount that only 1 person can offer. 2 people can't offer it. However, they could offer any animal they could offer together. Amar Rava, Medivrei Shneim Nilmod, from the two people in the Mishnah, Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Tarfon, I learn Nilmod Nisnadiv Adav Minchas Nisachim B'chol Yom, that you could always offer shemen, oil with flour and wine without an offering. Meaning, the whole machlokas was oil on its own, but sounds like they'll both agree. You want to offer wine today on its own with no offering, go for it. You want to bring oil mixed with flour on its own on the altar, go for it. Only debate was oil without flour. So from what they don't argue about, I learn that you can bring oil with flour up and wine up any day you want. Says the Gemara, yeah, pshita. Okay, that's obvious. What's so novel about that? The Torah only revealed to us, taught us 5 kinds of flour offerings, 5 and not 6. So in Tfeilo, the Torah only told you 5 offerings. It never just told you just flour and oil. That was never one of the options. Kamash Malan, honey mili b'stama. Those 5 offerings, that's in a general sense. But aval hecha de parish. But if you explicitly state you want to bring a measurement of oil with flour, and it doesn't fit into one of those 5 categories, that's accepted as well. So why can't 2 people bring 1/10 of a measurement? Ain't shnai misnavdin my time. What's the reason? In the singular, it says you shall bring in a singular, meaning 1 person, not 2 people. Ola nami haksiv yakriv. By an ola, it all says in the singular, he shall bring, and we taught that 2 people can bring 1 ola. So the singular usage of the word sacrifice is not it can't be our reason why only one of us could bring the minimal amount of a mincha. Ella ola my time. What is the reason by an ola, a consumed offering, that multiple people can bring 1 animal? It can't be the word yakriv, because that's in the singular. So it's because it says dechsiv olo sechem, to your plural ola offerings. So plural number, multiple people can bring 1 ola. Well, minchanami haksiv lemincho sechem. So say the same thing. It says your mincha offerings in the plural. So it sounds like multiple people can bring 1 mincha offering. Well, that can't be the reason either. Ela mishom dechsiv ba nefesh. Nefesh. Yeah. It's at the end of a pasuk. It always says nefesh. Not, it says nefesh. So it says nefesh. Nefesh is singular, it means soul, but it means one. It means referring to a person. 1 person can bring it. Now, Tanya Nami Halcha, Bryce supports this, that Rabbi Omer Asher Yakriv Korbano L'chol Nidremo L'chol Nidvosam Asher Yakriv Hashem. So it says that he can bring a sacrifice for all the Nidreim and Nidvosam, for the voluntary sacrifices that you bring to Hashem. So it says the Gemara Hakol Bayin V'Shutfis. You see, it's in the plural. It's in the plural. This verse is. Yeah, this verse is in the plural to teach you that you can bring all the offerings in partnership. You can partner up and bring an offering. Lo silek akasav ela mincha shnebar nefesh. But then when it gets to a flour offering, it says nefesh in the singular. In the singular. So Amar Rav Yitzchak mipnei ma nishtan is mincha shnebar nefesh. Why does a flour offering that says nefesh? Why there it says nefesh, and everywhere else it says in the plural, and here it's in the singular? Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem says, Mi dar kol lahavi mincha. Who is bringing the flour offerings? The poor person, ani. So malania alav akasav ki ilu hikriv nafsho lefanai. It's so dear to me, the poor person's offering, that I consider like he brought up his soul to me, even though all he can bring is flour. But to me, it's akin to bringing his soul. Don't think it's only if you bring an animal, it's like you bring your soul. If that's what you can afford, that's also like you can bring your soul. How come all of a sudden a flour offering, you have 5 different kinds? The shallow pan, this pan, that oil, thicker, thinner. Why does it say that? It's comparable to a king of flesh and blood, a human king. That his best friend, his loved one, the one he loved so much, made a meal, Suda. The Yodea Bo Shuani, and the king knows that his friend's really poor. So Amar Lo, he said, he said, listen, make for me asali mincha misha mine tigun. 5 different kinds of tigun is a frying. You fry with oil. Make me 5 different kinds of mine tigun. 5 different kinds of fried options over there. Kidesh and mimcha. That can benefit from you. Meaning, even though you're poor, so you're not going to be able to make fancy steak. So, however, with what you have, make it a variety. Making a variety, different kinds of consistencies of flour and oil, and that way I could benefit from it, as if to say, it'll be pleasing to me. So that's why the Torah, specifically by a flour offering, which is brought by the person who can't afford, it gave him a variety. You have a variety to choose from. You have a variety to choose from in order to make that pleasing before Hashem. Okay. Hadron Allah, Menachos, V'hanefsach. Take 2 minutes. Let's do the Mishnah. So it says in the next Mishnah, Harei Isaron, hear more about the way you vow. You bring upon yourself 1/10 of 1 Isaron. So what do? Yavi Echad, you got to bring 1/10 of a measurement. As you say Esronos, 2 1/10, guess what happens? Yavi Shnaim, you got to bring 2. Pirashti, let's say though, you say, oh no, I set aside the Eini Yodea Ma Pirashti. I vowed X amount, I forgot how much I vowed. Yavi Shishim, you got to bring 60. That's the most you could bring, is 60 we saw. That's the most you bring when Sukkot falls out on Shabbos. You bring 60. You got to bring 60 now. Yavi Shishim Isaron. Got to be 60 1/10 measurements. Harei Mincha, you just say, I'm bringing a Mincha. Which one do you bring? There's 5 options. Yavi Ezish years, anyone you want. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Yavi Minchas Asalas. No, you have to bring the finest flour. Why? Shehimi Yuchedesh Menachos. This is the finest of the Menachos. Is one with the finest flour. That's when you have to bring. Mincha. Min Mincha. Yavi Achat. If you say Mincha or a kind of Mincha, that's in the singular. So you bring 1 Mincha offering. But if you say Menachos, like our tractate's called, and that's in the plural, min Menachos or kinds of Menachos, then you bring the minimal of a plural, which is 2. Yavi Shtaim. Now, Perashti ve'eni yodei isn't Perashti. So, before you set aside, but you don't know what you set aside. Here, Perashti ve'eni yodei isn't and Perashti. I set aside, but I'm not sure which one of these I set aside. One of these 5 mincha offering I set aside, but you don't know which one. You got to bring all 5. So, Perashti mincha shel esronim. I set aside a mincha of multiple of 2 1/10 measurements. So I did a mincha of more than 1 1/10 measurements. So plural of, but I don't know how many. The eini yodei kama perashti. Was it 2 1/10? Was it 3? Was it 4? Was it 5? I don't know. So then Yavi Shishim Isar, and then you have to bring 60. However, Rebbe here says, Rabbi Omer Yavi Menachos Shel Esronos Me'achad Vat Shishim. The first opinion says, if you know you did multiples, but you don't know how many, so you'll bring 60, and you'll bring 60, it'll be in 1 vessel. But because maybe you offered up 60 to be in 1 vessel. But Rebbe says, if you don't know, then what you have to do is like this. You have to bring 1 for 1 vessel, 2 for another vessel, 3 for another vessel, 4 for another vessel. So 1,800, I don't know, 30 something. I don't know. I didn't do that like that. But you just bring 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 until you get all the way to 60. So since you said why, so Rashi explains because Rebbe holds, since you said mincha, it means you want to be in 1 vessel. So if you're not sure how many 1 vessel you offered, you have to bring each amount in a different vessel. So that's going to be a lot of work to do. So okay, we'll stop there.